So I have Lewis and Barbara here now. We're going to talk a little bit about the upcoming workshop. So welcome to New Zealand. And you're off to Christchurch tonight to start the first workshop. But first, if you could just tell us a little bit about the stories to awaken the inner hero. Are we going to have to wear tights and capes, do you think?
That could be fun. We wouldn't.
If you wish.
Yeah, tights and capes would be great.
No one turned away.
Right. Well, I think where this comes from in the work that we do is the research with recovery from psychosis shows that the most important factor is developing self-agency, finding self-agency. And so we've worked at how do we help people do that? How do you discover agency when you feel like you have none? And one of the ways is to identify with heroes and to discover the times in your life when you've been heroic, which I think being heroic simply means that you took action without a guarantee of outcome, that you took an action that involved some element of risk and you didn't know if it would work.
So that's when faced with a challenge, for instance, instead of running away from it or hiding from it, you've actually stood up to it? Is that
Right,
what you
right.
would be part of that as well?
And it could be, for some people, heroic just to get out of bed in the morning because you don't know how the day's going to go. And it could go terribly wrong. And yet you get up and you get dressed and you get on with it. And that can be quite heroic.
And so how are you going to get people to find their hero? What type of things do you think they'll be doing? You'll be doing with them in the workshop?
We'll be playing with heroic stories. We have an exercise where we can turn the ordinary into the extraordinary. And we'll play with telling about times when you've taken risks and you didn't know what would happen and it worked out. So sharing stories of successful heroism. And also looking for the heroes within. So we all have heroes with whom we identify. We have mentors, we have living heroes, we have departed heroes, we have superheroes, we have cultural heroes, we have gods and goddesses of different kinds, sacred beings. So we all have these internal characters who can coach us about being more heroic in our lives.
And when we do it with story, it's just more fun. So, the day is really a lovely time of sharing stories together. And it turns out that it also works in this really nice way to encourage people to feel like they can just shift perspective a little bit.
Because that's an important thing, isn't it? I find often with people that have voices or with any mental illness, really, sometimes it's kind of like they've got stuck in a story, haven't they? They've got stuck in their life story, and sometimes the voices are telling that story, and it seems, because of the metaphor, they don't seem to understand that that's the story they're in. Would you agree with that?
Right, absolutely. And mostly, I think people come to the attention of the mental health system because they're stuck in bad stories. So they're stuck with voices that are saying destructive, humiliating, painful things to them. And they often feel like there's no way out. There's no escape from this torment. And so looking for different stories just puts a little bit of crack in that armor. It provides a little bit of leverage to say, hey, there's some other stories and some other voices you could listen to. Maybe you're not noticing that little voice in the corner that says what a great person you are. You're just not paying attention, you know.
Because I think also it's that concept that if you don't believe it can change, then it can't change.
Absolutely.
And sometimes I found for myself, doing an exercise where you're imagining things can change actually gives the mind, I mean, you've done neuroscience, the mind starts thinking, oh, there is a way, doesn't it? And starts looking for the ways to change. Would you agree with that?
It's like you're practicing. So you kind of, you open up the possibility. It's like opening up the file for that, creating the folder. So, and in the workshop setting, you have a nice accepting place where you can try out something, try out a new story and see what you think. And you
try it on for size.
Yeah, without there being a whole lot of pressure on it.
Because I did read an interesting workshop that you'd done on the importance of evil in our stories. And I saw that and I thought that's so great, because often you get people who have had voices or have had bad things happen to them in their lives and they don't want to tell anyone, because I think often in our social media everything's sanitized, isn't it? Everything's bright and happy and smiley, but they've got these deep dark things in there they don't want anyone to see. Whereas in the other cultures or in even older times, we often told terrible stories about dark beings that were overcome.
Right. Like,
so I was quite interested in your workshop on that.
Well, and villains really speed the plot along. You need a good villain. You know, look at the Batman movies. So the Joker, the Riddler, I mean, those are epic villains that none of us can forget. And so we do have villains in our lives. We have, you know, some of us have been traumatized by other people who are villains, and we need to be able to engage those villains in a way that we prevail, you know, that we create a good movie about taking on the enemy and coming out ahead. And I think that, you know, we can do, when we have a supportive audience, we can do amazing work. And I think that's the beauty of these kinds of workshops, is that people come with the intention of being supportive to each other and create this environment where change can occur more rapidly than when we're off by ourselves in our own little boxes, you know.
Because, and for family, I think it's helpful for them, wouldn't it be, family and mental health workers? And what do you think they will get from the workshop?
I think you get a kind of inspired look at just how, you know, stories have a little magic in them, in the way that they open up possibilities, and somebody who can be quite stuck can find something new in a way that can be really inspiring to see that there are ways to shift things, and it's easier. And I know I say fun, and I don't mean that in a lighthearted way, but it's almost like playing, which is such an important thing for us to do with our minds, to get ourselves out of those stuck places. So I think family and workers come away with a real idea of how even to, you know, start a new conversation with somebody that they're helping out, so be able to And
I would say these are techniques that really work.
Yeah.
You know, if you do them in your practice.
And because I think one of the reasons we brought you here is because people have to realise that what the voices are saying, there is a story, and the story is important. And so we're looking forward to exploring this more with you.
Excellent.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.